Hello everyone and welcome! The stories of both Rakan and Xayah got released, so it is time we look into them. And although their lore interacts with each other, they are two separate stories, so I decided to tackle them the same way. So let's start with Rakan first. As mercurial as he is charming, Rakan is an infamous Vastayan troublemaker and the greatest battle dancer in the history of the Lothland tribe. To the humans of the Ionian Highlands, the name Rakan became synonymous with festivals, uncontrollable parties and anarchic music. Only few would suspect that this energetic traveling showman is also partner to the rebel Xayah and is dedicated to her cause. The Lothland tribe lives at the borders of Ionia's mythical deep forests. It is a place where Vastayan creatures breathe magic like air. To them, the mortal realms have become something like an unforgiving desert, virtually devoid of magic. Only few willingly travel from their shrinking lands, but Rakan has long walked a riskier path. He journeys along the edges of the world's magical streams, as an explorer, emissary, and song catcher for his tribe. An entertaining rogue, a welcome performer for any tavern or village carnival, Rakan was enjoying all the little adventures on his road, until he had the chance to meet Xayah at the harvest festival of Volonko. Seeing her in the crowd, Rakan performed one of his oldest songs, entracing the entire town with his dance. Though countless human and Vastayan women had fallen for him in the past, this Violet Raven seemed immune to his charms, though not uninterested. How could she see him yet choose not to follow him? This was a puzzle with no easy answer. Intrigued, the battle dancer decided he would accompany Xayah on her travels. He became fascinated by how she interacted with the world. She seemed always prepared, aloof and focused, while he was the exact opposite. But in any dangerous situation, they fought together with uncanny harmony. Soon enough, the pair became inseparable. After months of courtship, Rakan began to see the world through Xayah's eyes. Inspired by his partner's drive, he joined her crusade to reclaim the power of the Vastaya and take back all that their people had lost. Through Xayah, he had found purpose, and Rakan had fallen in love. Two paths lead to the monastery fortress from the villages below it, Xayah began. Rakan followed her eyes and saw a pair of golden stairways that stretched down from the mountain temple to the farmhouses below. Each wooden house probably had whole families inside. There, mortals were born, they died, and most importantly, they created new songs. Probably with harps and drums, maybe flutes. Should I make a reed flute later? First, I need to fluff my cloak. Did I remember to clean my feathers? The town below must have an inn. A bottle of wine would be great right now. Rakan, Xayah said. Crap, she was telling me the plan. He focused back on her face, on her crooked smile. The sunset's last rays reflected in her eyes. He loved her eyelashes. He wanted to repeat it back to me. Something in the monastery, she was I rendezvous with you at... Rakan said, but he had already lost the thread. He pulled at one of his feathers on his head, hoping to pluck the idea from it. A tiny shimmer of light glistened from her bottom lip. Rakan noticed it was purple. It was violet yesterday. They will kill me if they catch me, she said. The shock of the thought snapped Rakan back to reality. He felt his face twist into a snarl. Who? He demanded. The guards, she replied. It's always the guards. Then I'll distract them. When? She pointed to the sky. Look for a green flash before the sun sets. Then draw the guards away from the western walls, while I run along the ramparts to the cells. I put on a show the moment the sun sets. He said. Where do we meet? At the gate. I'll throw a golden blade into the sky, but you'll have to be there in 10 breaths. Xayah said, plucking a feather from his cloak. I will be at that gate the moment you throw the blade, Rakan said. At that moment, nothing in his life was more certain than that. I know. She nodded and began telling him the safest path to take. She always planned things. That's why he knew she would be okay. He then noticed how gorgeous the sky was. He even saw a cloud shaped like an eggplant. He saw a dog once. The plan was running and Rakan stood at the golden steps. He didn't like them. His feathers were the same color and he blended in almost perfectly. It infuriated him and he thought about changing their hue, but that would take some magic. Damn, I can't be tired when she needs me. Xayah probably sent me this way knowing my plumage would blend in here. A red cape would look better against these steps. Maybe indigo? What's round this corner? More steps. Only humans could cut stones into flat shapes to make mountain boring. I should climb the cliff. Xayah said to take the steps, I'm pretty sure. He picked up some pebbles and began to juggle them. He heard the magic writhing from the north of him, within the twisting roots of the Luradi forest. He remembered the forest song and began to sing it. What was that? A voice echoed above him. A human guard appeared. His clothing was as dark as shadow. Who are you? He demanded. I'm Rakan, he replied. He was weirded out that he didn't know him. Who? Rakan didn't like him. He hated him more than the steps. I'm Rakan, the battle dancer of the Lowland tribe. I am the song of the morning. I am the dance in the midnight moon. I am the charm that... It's the Vastayan entertainer. Another guard interrupted. He too wore boring clothing. Clothes Rakan hadn't seen in this area before. The first guard had a shiny golden amulet on his chest. He snatched it from him. Hey, what's this? Rakan asked. The guard grasped for it, but Rakan flipped it around his hand while juggling the pebbles in the other. Gimme that. He flicked each stone into his face. No, he said. Is it important? The guard drew a pair of hook swords. Rakan took one away from him before he could raise them. Open the gate. I'll give you back this shiny thing. He offered as he twirled the amulet in his palm and then sent it spinning up his arm. Instead, the guard attacked. Rakan flipped over and landed behind him. The guard turned to slash again. Rakan dived under the blade, using his rear to knock him off balance. The guard fell down the steps with a scream. The other guard watched his friend tumbling away, then looked back to Rakan. He shook his head at him. Honestly, how could anyone not know who I am? The other guard stabbed at him with a spear. Rakan twisted past him, blinding him with his cloak. The guard tripped over himself and fell onto his shield. He then continued his fall down the same stairs and crashed into his friend at the bottom. You are terrible dancers, he said as he checked his cloak for dirt. The two guards stumbled to their feet, glaring up at Rakan. You okay? He asked, thankful for the amusement. They roared as they rushed up the steps. Ungrateful bastards. Rakan leapt away from them and asked, Wanna know the difference between a party and a fight? They slashed at him with their weapons again and again. One is an entertaining day, Rakan said as he sent them back down the stairs. The other is shorter. A deafening gong sounded behind him. Rakan smiled. The fun part was about to begin. The action continued moments later. You gotta do better than that, Rakan yelled, taunting his pursuers as he ran. He had around 20 or 30 guards behind him and he needed to get out. He realized that running through the sleeping chambers was a bad idea. Some of the men had strange crossbows. They used fire from a tube. If he had to give them a name, Rakan would call them tube bows. Their shots exploded around him, blowing holes into the walls. Rakan leapt from the room and slid into the courtyard, performing a full twist to give it some flair. The gate opened. He could run for it, but Xayah needed him. One of the guards swung his tube bow at him. Or is bow too better? He quickly thought. He leapt at the guard, diving over his shot. What's a good rhyme for tube bow? Rakan asked out loud. He kicked the guard up in the air. As he fell, Rakan spun and introduced his hand to the man's cheek. The sound was louder than his weapon. Oh slap! he said. The human rolled to his feet, pulling out his sword. How are you not getting the message? Rakan wondered if he could find a kitchen. That's where the chocolate would be. The light in the sky was changing. He leapt into the air to check the sun's location again. It disappeared behind the hills. An orb of green light flashed above it. Party time! He screamed. Now the entire castle was chasing him. Surrender yourself! A guard in a metal hat yelled. No, I'm distracting you, Rakan replied. The guard looked at him confused. Rakan knew he was going to slap him next. A hail of arrows launched from the opposite wall. He danced through them, enjoying their whistling. The golden blade hung in the air for a second before falling. Xayah was ready to go. He took his first breath. She said he had 10, but even 4 was too long. He had to know she was safe. Wanna see some sweet moves? He asked the nearest human. He rolled through the group and appeared behind him. The human turned and met Rakan's cloak halfway. His feathers launched him spinning into the air. Second breath. Rakan repeated his move on another guard. Third breath. He had to make it back to where Xayah needed him. He leapt up the rampart and ran toward the gate. He took fourth breath mid-air. Xayah appeared out of nowhere and ran toward the gate with some fancy Juloas, Vastaans from the Sejoko tribe. We'll never make it, shouted Akunir, the eldest one of the group. They have rifles. You mean the 2 bows? Rakan asked. Akunir stared at him blankly. Those are out of ammo. The Zini longbows too. What? How? I'm Rakan, he explained. All of you, run to the tree line, Xayah shouted. A dozen men covered in flour and chocolate ran from the guardhouse. Run, Xayah yelled. That's when one of the Juloa fell. Rakan pulled him along. After a while, the group successfully got away. One of them, named Cole, knelt beside her guardian's body. She and Xayah prayed that his spirit would find their lands. One of his horns was broken. Blood pooled in the leaves around him. Cole removed the last arrow from his corpse. The guard carried her all the way here, even after the humans wounded him. Rakan's eyes were full of tears. Softly, he sang for his loss, for his families. Xayah stood with her fists clenched. She wouldn't grieve now. Instead, she would wait until the pain catches up to her later that night, when she thinks Rakan is asleep. That's when Rakan would kiss away her sorrow. Cole's husband Akunir and Xayah began arguing about politics, while Cole held anger stronger than anyone else's. I will go back north, Akunir, Cole said as she raced. I will tell them what was done to us. Cole, no, Akunir protested. I will bear word of Jor-El's fate to his kin, and mourn with them, she said. Rakan realized that must have been the guard's name. He also noticed the lines on the side of his face. Perhaps he was kind. Then I will muster arms and prepare the tribe to fight. You cannot do that, Akunir yelled. I forsake my claim to you. I forsake your claim to me, she said coldly. Akunir looked as if he had been stabbed. Cole, please. No, she stated. He moved to grab her. Rakan blocked him. I will speak with my mate, he said. His forehead nearly touched Rakan's nose as he stared up at him. Rakan simply shook his head. No words were needed. Thank you, Xayah, Cole said before limping away. Akunir and his guards watched her go. Rakan moved close to Xayah. He felt her sadness for Jor-El, Cole, and for Akunir. Rakan knew he would drink wine tonight. Then he'll sing rude songs. Promise me nothing will come between us like that, Mieli, she said. We're not like them, Miela. We'll never be like them, Rakan replied. He could feel her worry. She's smarter than him about so many things, but foolish about love sometimes. Where to now, Xayah? Let's just stay here a moment longer. He wrapped his cloak and arms around her. He will tickle her later. They will laugh and drink. She will plan and he will sing. He felt her cheek on his chest. He was glad that Zaya needed him now. "Repeat it back to me," she said. "We are not like them." Rakan said again, "We are not like them." And that is it for Rakan's story. What was it all about? We'll know once we put all the pieces together. For now, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to click the like below and subscribe for more stories. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Discord if you'd like to chat. And with that, again, thank you so much for being here and for your feedback. You know I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you, come again.